Hello, my friends. I am the Stone Sorcerer, and today I'm going to tell you about that one time that I took an edible and now I have trauma. Again, we're going to talk about the time that I took an edible and had a panic attack that literally changed me forever. Maybe for the better. Who knows? It remains to be seen. A little backstory on how much I used to smoke and take edibles in the past is I started smoking when I was 16. If you haven't seen that video, I'll try to link it here somehow so you can reference that. But it's a true story about the first time I smoked weed whenever I was 16 years old. It was a terrible time, spoiler alert. I kind of didn't do it again until I was 18, I believe. And I did it for maybe 6 months. And then I kind of let stigmas get in my head and I stopped smoking for a while. I really didn't start smoking again from the time I was 18 to about the time I was 24 or so. And back then it was a once in a while kind of thing as a treat. You know, somebody in my friend group would be like, hey man, you want to smoke some weed? And of course we'd go smoke weed. It was great. Eventually, I smoked more and more and more. It went from being like every 6 months to being like every other month. And then it was like once a month. Then it was like once a week. Then it was a couple times a week. It kind of escalated to where I was a daily smoker. And then I got to the point where I was probably smoking, I don't know, an eighth of weed a day, maybe more. And we would illegally, get these edibles from Colorado. And I used to take them like crazy. They never seemed to affect me. I would get a box that was supposed to be 100 milligrams total of like some small cookies or something. And I'd eat the whole box and never really felt like I felt much of anything. That all changed. Oklahoma legalized marijuana in 2018. Next thing you know, people are coming out with these crazy strong edibles. They went from getting a whole box of cookies that were like 100 milligrams of THC to now you're getting upwards of 1,000 or more milligrams of THC in one item. My best friend bought one of these 1,000 milligram brownies and him and I decided to split it. To be fair, it's kind of difficult to know the concentrations of THC in any particular portion of an edible. Sure, people try their best to disperse it evenly throughout, but let's assume for the sake of the story, I was taking roughly 500 milligrams of THC at the time, and then I waited. If you've ever taken an edible before, you know just as well as I do that they take forever to kick in. Most of the time, it's like an hour and a half, and you're like, oh man, maybe it's a dud. And then next thing you know, boom, it hits. After taking this brownie, waited a while, probably an hour and a half goes by, and I start feeling this like feel-good, tingly sensation going all over my body. I knew this edible was about to be the shit. I turned to my friend and I was like, this is about to be fucking fun. Let me tell you, it was not fucking fun. I ended up alone in the living room. My buddy had fucked off to his room. We were roommates. I was just alone in the living room by myself. And then in my stomach was like Bugs Bunny going down a ducting shaft, just ting, 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 ting. And it's welling up inside of me. I realized I was gonna throw up. I ran and grabbed a trash can. And I came back to the couch and I sat it in front of me because I didn't feel comfortable just standing at the trash can. I felt like I was gonna like faint or something. And then I started vomiting aggressively. Maybe I was just wicked fucking high at the time, but it felt like it was like inching out of my throat bit by bit by bit and forceful and forever. It just lasted so damn long. It felt like I was vomiting for a solid 20 minutes, just non-stop, this snake of vomit coming out of my throat. It was disgusting and it terrified me. I have a little bit of trauma from whenever I was younger. I'll tell the full story another day. it occurred to me that I could aspirate. Don't know what aspirating is. It is choking on your own vomit, blocking your pathways, and essentially suffocating yourself. Once that thought hit my brain, immediately the rest of my body started freaking out. My heart was just beating through my chest, felt like it was going a mile a minute, and I legit thought, now I'm gonna have a heart attack and I'm gonna die in this living room. I'm alone again, still. I had no one to turn to and be like, hey, help me out here. And it took over. So I guess that fight or flight response got triggered by the THC. Since I wasn't worried about the cops showing up, I started worrying that I was gonna die. It was exhausting. I ended up panicking for 6 hours. I had my girlfriend almost take me to the ER, thinking I would be the first mofo to die from taking marijuana. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. I would not ever wish that upon anybody. That was about a 6-hour panic attack where nothing I could do to get myself back out. I was in. You're down that rabbit hole. There's no turning back. I know there's a lot of science behind this in terms of how you digest edibles in comparison to smoking it or vaping it. It processes through your liver, it changes the chemical composition of the THC, and it becomes more psychoactive through that process. I'm not a scientist. I don't know all the logistics. Now I can't do edibles at all. I tried taking a really low dosage edible after the fact. A friend of mine gave me like 25 milligram edibles. Took that. One day it was totally fine. It was like I just had a great time coasting through on this edible. Didn't really feel overwhelmed or anything like that. Then I tried another of the exact same edible, 25 milligrams yet again, and I immediately started panicking about an hour into taking this edible. And I grabbed an ice pack, I put it on my chest, I'm trying to calm down. And then I started noticing whenever I would just smoke regular bud, just from a pipe or whatever, I would get that panicky, flighty feeling is what I call it. I couldn't smoke as much for a long time. It took a whole lot of coping to get over that. This edible literally gave me trauma because I had never experienced anything like that in my life. And the only time I experienced that is whenever I get wicked baked. It's not so bad anymore. I've learned coping mechanisms. In another video, we can talk about, how to manage anxiety along with marijuana if that's something that you're interested in. Suffice to say, I don't take edibles anymore because of that experience. And it's so unreliable of an experience for me because, again, the way edibles are, at least in Oklahoma, there's no consistency. You can have a 25 milligram edible and another 25 milligram edible, and they are not the same necessarily. It could be from the exact same package, and they are not necessarily the same. You're not going to take one and feel exactly the same the next time you take one. At least for me. Maybe it's different for you. I know people that don't smoke at all. They only do edibles. Unfortunately, that's just not for me anymore. On the bright side, I also smoke a lot less because I still smoke every day, but I smoke a lot less these days because I don't want to, freak out. So I'm not sitting there just chiefing all day long and fucking ripping the bong till I can't see or doing dabs or whatever. I still do those things. And whenever I'm around good company, I tend to smoke more, and now that I have these good coping mechanisms in place to deal with that fight or flight response, I can absolutely push those limits even further. And of course, my tolerance has probably come back up. There's factors, but I still love smoking weed. I do it every day. It's kind of my unwind from work. I've learned to mitigate that fight or flight response as best as I possibly can and alleviate a lot of that anxiety from smoking, that heart palpitation thing and thinking I'm gonna die. I've kind of been getting that out of my system and learning better coping mechanisms. And now I can manage to just smoke and enjoy it, chill out on the couch, get some work done, what have you. I think the best part about this whole story is how it kind of taught me moderation. There's a saying that, if you don't rest, your body will choose a time to rest for you. But I like to think that everything happens for a reason, and maybe this experience that I had on the edible was to help me learn how to better moderate my consumption of cannabis. Not saying that consuming loads of cannabis is wrong or there isn't a time or place, but in a way I kind of think of it like binge drinking. No, you don't have the same type of after effects of being hungover or something along those lines that you would with binge drinking, but it's, in my mind, probably also not the healthiest thing to do. However, every now and then, I like to just smoke a lot of weed. It is what it is. Hanging out with the homies and whatever, it's fun. It's a good time. But in my normal day-to-day life, I try to use it more to fuel my creativity, unwind a little bit after work. I've definitely learned to moderate my consumption a little more, and damn, weed lasts me a long time in comparison, and I'm really appreciative. Most of the times I smoke probably less than a gram in a day. It's pretty cool to think about, in a way, how this edible gave me different understanding of how to be moderate. Because now, I don't want to crawl out of my skin with anxiety. I want to enjoy being a little stoned or even a lot of stoned. It just kind of depends on the day. If you've had a wild edible experience, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. And if you haven't already subscribed, consider doing so if you'd like to see future videos. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Again, I'm the Stone Sorcerer. I'll see you next time.